Hi guys, Rebecca here. What's up? Today I wanted to share some of my favorite movies I like to watch on repeat. And I was inspired to do this video after watching Ruby Granger's video on the movies that she likes to watch on repeat, and I thought this was an absolute great idea. And before we get started, I just want to let you know these movies are in no particular order, just depending on the way that I edit this video, but other than that, let's get started. The first movie on my list is How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I will be honest and say I just watched the original trilogy for the first time a couple months ago, but I can tell you with complete confidence that I think I've watched the first movie at least 20 times. Probably a little bit more because of the live action remake, because I saw it twice in theaters. And I just love it, the story. Jay Baruchel and America Ferrera played an excellent Hiccup and Astrid. Also loved Jerry Butler as he was playing Stoic, and he made an excellent return in the live action How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I want to make a additional video on How to Train Your Dragon because I also read all 12 books by Cressida Cowell. So stay tuned for that, and on to the next movie. The next movie on my list is Aquamarine, which came out in 2006. I love this movie because I've always been obsessed with mermaids as a kid, and it holds sentimental value with me and my cousins because we've spent countless hours watching this movie on repeat, and I think with the DVD that I own still, I think if I tried to put it into the DVD player today, it would probably not work. But I love the story, and it definitely taught me a lot about trying to flirt with guys. If you have boy troubles, don't worry. All you need is some ice cream and some shopping therapy. Yeah, there's that. Another movie on my list is Finding Nemo, which I definitely grew up with that movie, so that's one reason why I watch it a lot on repeat. And I really just love the themes of exploring the world, even though sometimes you have to learn to take risks, and most importantly, just learn how to be independent despite your differences. The next movie I have on my list is The Princess Switch, which came out in 2018 and stars Vanessa Hudgens as dual characters. One is a baker from Chicago named Stacy DeNovo, and Margaret Delacourt, Duchess of Montanaro. Stacy gets invited to compete in a baking competition in Belgravia. Margaret, on the other hand, she is getting married to the Prince of Belgravia on New Year's Day. So after a chance encounter, they both decide to switch places so Margaret can see what it's like as a commoner in day-to-day society. And let's also keep in mind, this is also taking place during Christmas. Well, who doesn't like Christmas? And I will admit, because of it being a Christmas rom-com, a lot of people are like, don't you ever get tired? Like, isn't it too early to celebrate Christmas? But in my family, there is no such thing as too early or too late to celebrate Christmas. And I really love the chemistry between Stacy and Edward as the series goes on. For these next two movies that I'm gonna bring up, I wanted to do both of them at the same time because on the same token, they kind of go hand in hand. So I wanted to do Legally Blonde and Barbie. Now, obviously, for Legally Blonde, I really love the empowerment of Elle Woods. You watch her grow from being this Southern California chick to this bright lawyer. And for Barbie, it really just encapsulates everything that it means to be a woman. I really loved America Ferrera in the movie. Margot Robbie played an excellent Barbie. I really liked Ryan Gosling's portrayal of Ken because he definitely adds a lot of zaniness to the character, to the point where I'm always laughing every time he shows that he's just Ken. The next movie on my list is the Super Mario Brothers movie that came out in 2023. Now, if many of you have seen my previous videos, you know that for one of my assignments in editing class where I had to do a genre swap, So I did the Super Mario Brothers movie from a family adventure to an adventure comedy. So, yeah. And also, the Super Mario Brothers movie also hits very close to home to me for having a twin brother, and in every situation for us growing up, he was definitely the Mario to my Luigi, and he still is to this day. And I just really love the bond that Mario has with Luigi, and I really love the line before they get separated in the warp pipe that nothing can hurt us as long as we're together. And the training scene is absolutely hilarious, so that's another reason why I like to watch the movie on repeat. The next movie I have on my list is Titanic, which of course is directed by James Cameron from 1997, and I just love the movie, and I'll be completely honest, I think I stand for everybody that has a huge fascination with Titanic, and I've always been fascinated with it. It makes me cry like a baby every time I watch it. The love story between Jack and Rose is just so beautiful, heart-wrenching, and the sinking scene gets me every single time. The next movie on my list is Elf. Now, this one was directed by Jon Favreau of 2003, starring Will Ferrell and James Caan. If I'm saying his name incorrectly, I apologize. Where Will Ferrell's character, named Buddy, he has to look for his father after spending 30 years at the North Pole to find his father in a magical place called New York City. This is one of my favorite Christmas movies, and my family watch it every year. In addition to The Polar Express, my grandmother loves watching that one. And another movie that we also love to watch every single year is It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of my favorite movies because it reminds everyone to count their blessings even in hard times. And we can definitely learn something from James Bailey. And another reason is because my uncle, he has been battling cancer for years, and one way that they cope with it is to watch It's a Wonderful Life. And I just love that it just reminds people to just admire of how lucky we are to be alive right now, especially in these hard times. So, without further ado, on to the next clip. And say hello to my German Shepherd, who also killed my Buddy the elf blow up that we had in our front porch. Yeah, thank you for nothing, you useless canine. My next movie I wanted to recommend is Dolphin Tale. Now, this movie came out in 2011. It was based on a real life story of Winter the dolphin who had a prosthetic leg. And yes, it does give me How to Train Your Dragon vibes, but I love it to death. I actually had the privilege to go see Winter in 2017, and I got to hold her prosthetic tail, which was one of the best moments of my entire life. And if you want to check out the aquarium, I will also leave the aquarium's link down below so you can go check that out. My next movie I like to watch on repeat is High School Musical. I love this movie because it really teaches kids about embracing your differences, especially when one person wants you to be this one way while another person wants you to be another way. And you definitely can identify with one of the characters. For anybody who grew up in the early 2000s during the original reign of High School Musical in 2006, you're always going to run into someone who shares personality traits with one of the characters. Because you're always going to run into your Troys, your Gabriellas, your Sharpays. I can say with complete confidence that when I was in high school, I was definitely a Gabriella due to being very studious. And yeah, it always teaches you that you're all in this together. The next movie on my list is the live action remake of The Little Mermaid that came out in 2023. Now, everyone knows the animated version of The Little Mermaid that came out in 1989 And I will say Halle Bailey played an excellent Ariel. Daveed Diggs did amazing as Sebastian. And I really wasn't that pleased with Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. I really wish that we had Queen Latifah, because Queen definitely killed it in The Little Mermaid Live. That was done like a couple years previously. And I've always loved Little Mermaid as a kid. I got to do it when I was in high school, and that was the best time of my life. While we're on the topic of adaptations, I also wanted to bring up another one, two of my favorite biblical related movies, and that is One Night with the King, which is a retelling of the book of Esther. Basically, Tiffany DuPont plays a character named Hadassah, and she is taken into the king's court to be in a beauty competition. Basically, whoever pleases the king most will be the next queen of Persia, which basically, in today's terms, that sounds like The Bachelor. And so Hadassah is also Jewish, and her cousin Mordecai told her to hide her Jewish identity in the walls, where she's named Esther. And she pleased the king the most, and she was crowned Queen of Persia. However, the king hired a prime minister named Haman, and because Mordecai refused to bow down to Haman, Haman made a decree for all the Jews to be annihilated. And throughout this movie, you see Esther as she prepares to make the biggest leap of faith. And the next movie on my list, biblically, is Joseph, King of Dreams, that came out in 2000 with Ben Affleck as Joseph. This is a retelling of the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, where Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers out of jealousy, because his father favored Joseph the most. After Joseph was sold into slavery, he went to Egypt and became the head steward of the captain of the guard of Pharaoh. Through a false accusation, he is thrown into prison. The biggest question after he was sold into slavery, and how does he use his faith for such a time as that? I really love how even when you feel like you're at the top, all of a sudden you go all the way down to the bottom. Just know that God is with you every step of the way, and knowing that everything happens for a reason. And things that you don't realize are huge steps back then, where you're like, why did this happen back then? But then years later, you're going to realize that it's all going to make sense now. And I love that so much about Joseph, King of Dreams. All right. We're almost done, and a couple other favorite movies that I would say is kind of my honorable mentions, I would say, is Luca of 2021, Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2, Thor Ragnarok, which is one of my favorite MCU movies, and my last honorable mention that I have on this list is Wonka. Most specifically, the one that came out in 2023 with Timothée Chalamet. I've always been captivated with stories of how people start off small and always work their way up. And another movie like that has always been on my list is The Greatest Showman. I love The Greatest Showman. I've always been fascinated with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. And I've always found that story captivating, how these 5 brothers from a small town during the Victorian era were able to work together to form this massive circus empire that still stands today. And that's all, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a comment down below telling me what some of your favorite movies are, and I will see you guys next time.